In this particular video, we'll be going through section A, which covers the entire reading and writing section. I will be sharing with you all the insights that you need to keep in mind in order to conquer your own English language exam. And most importantly, I'll teach you how to structure your writing within a limited time so that you can pass your own exam with flying colors. The first question. In the section, A Communication Revolution, the writer gives us some benefits of the internet. State one of them. So what you're going to do is you're going to write all the way down to the last text. You're going to read that section that they want us to read. Communication revolution, a communication revolution, and you're going to look for something the writer says. So if we look here, it is no exaggeration to say that the internet has revolutionized our everyday communication. There you go. Your answers over there. These are simple retrieval questions. The answer is literally over there. All you have to do is just read it and write it. So we're going to write our question one is simply, let me make that big. Question one is simply this. Okay, we're going to do question two now. Okay, what does question two ask? Again, go back to the question. Question two. And we see that the writer is saying, in lines 49 to 56, the writer gives parents and children advice about using social media. Identify one piece of advice, 49 to 56. So we're going to go back again. 49 to 56 is probably over here. 49 to 56. So this is probably this paragraph here. Okay. What? Oh my God. What did the writer say? Young people often struggle to regulate their own social media usage, and it is important to instill good habits. So we should be. It's important to install good habits. That's one of your points. Now, one thing I suggest: find at least 2 points and then choose your answer. That's way better than just getting one answer and then just writing that down. So it is important to install good habits. That's a really good answer, and we are going to write that as our answer. Now, moving on to question three. Moving on to question three. Question three is our writer's effect questions. They contain 10 marks. Let's look at the question. First, we have to identify the type. What type of question is it? And if you notice, it is explain how the writer presents ideas about manners in digital communication. A simple, what do you call it? Recap. There are three types of question. The first type is present, persuade. The other one, persuade. The other one is show, and the last one is describe. Each one of them has a different writing style, a writing different format, and there's a different structure we maintain. Now, since it's a present question, we normally like to go with this particular structure. You get an introduction. You find CSR, and the C. This is an acronym. The C stands for credibility. S stands for structure. R stands for register. And then of course you can give a final conclusion, and if you desire you can add a perspective comment / note. If you have time and if you feel fancy, you can definitely do that. Now, let's go to the text. Let's read the text. Let's find devices. Let's find words to if there is any words to be analyzed. Let's look at it. Okay. Netiquette, a guide to manners. Okay. Netiquette, a guide to manners. And interesting, it's giving that the title has this kind of like an opening, friendly, it's not even friendly, it's more like a DIY type question. The writer is going to teach you all the points. You as the reader, you're going to read those points, you're going to understand them, you're going to apply them. So since it's a guide, he's going to be using subheadings to make it feel like a guide, break down his points and guide you, through. That's a very nice text. That's a very nice way of starting. Okay. So this is the text. This is our text. And we see, let's read the whole thing. The advent of modern technology, social media, and instant communication. He uses a tricolon right at the start. At the beginning, he starts with a tricolon, which we can see has brought a new set of rule on how we conduct ourselves in the digital world. Etiquette is a combination. He's defining the word. He's defining the title now. Is a combination of words, network, and etiquette. Etiquette. That's a very nice. They basically merged. They merged it. That's good, and refers to the use of good manners in online communication. Now, one of the things that stands out, a structural device the writer has used is subheadings. And subheadings is a point we are to um, we are to talk about in the structure paragraph. Now, if you were wondering, these are three different paragraphs. We talk about structure, register, and we found subheadings here. Subheadings. This is a good thing. Okay. It is no exaggeration. We read this. It has removed all physical barriers and opened up a new world of connecting with other people without conventional constraints. This is an example of alliteration. Whenever you have two letters starting one after another, the consecutive letters are the same consonants. We call this alliteration. Um, an alliteration. Sorry. Space and distance. Another tricolon. From ordering a takeaway to buying a new television or sharing the first pictures of your new child born, just giving some daily uses of what we do with the internet. All it takes is just one click of a button. We can now send messages across the globe. Shows this phrase here shows how far and wide the effects of social media is, and land in the recipient's inbox in a matter of seconds and watch news stories unfold. Beautiful word, in the front of our eyes in real time. However, with new opportunities comes with new responsibilities. This sounds kind of like that quote from Spider-Man, right? It sounds kind of like that. And we have this is a quote, definitely. You know, if you have opportunities, you will have responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility, but it's a different version of it, I guess. And we have and now we what and how we behave online is just as important, if not so, our behavior offline. A very beautiful message. Okay, moving on. Set clear boundaries. Now, one of the things you see um this is something you have to kind of like pick up on when you're reading. These subheadings are commands. They're imperative commands. They're imperative subheadings in a way. Set clear boundaries. He's giving us an order. He's telling us to do this, not to do that. Be a role model. That's not a suggestion. That's a command. So one of the things we have to talk about is the fact that his subheadings are not just to break the large portion of text into small bite-sized chunks that we normally do talk about. We also have to infer the fact that the subheadings are simple commands that the readers can remember. That's something really important. Did we read this whole thing? We have not. Let's read it. Just because we see a colloquial phrasing 24/7, this is a colloquial way of saying like all the time. So this text is somewhat colloquial. We'll have to see. Just because we have the ability to communicate with one another 24/7, we shouldn't feel that we have to make ourselves available around the clock. While technology has made it easier to connect with friends, families, and business associates in different parts of the world, the disadvantages is that we are expected to always be on. Okay, he's kind of the writer. I don't even know who the writer is. Uh, there is no writer. Wait, there might be one. Um, no, there is no writer. Okay, they didn't give the writer's name. How odd. Well, it's an organization, the British School of Etiquette website. So that's the organization as a whole. So we will have to refer to the narrator, whoever is kind of like writing this whole thing. It doesn't matter how you infer to the narrator. Don't get the gender wrong. Okay, this always on work culture causes an increase in stress levels and disrupts employees work family balance. Okay, so she's now listing disadvantages. right? That's good. And we see one of the things we see that the writer is using a device. He's using inclusive pronouns. He's using inclusive pronouns throughout the text. Yes or not? Yes or no? He is using inclusive pronouns. So he's using we and all this kind of stuff to make the message sound more personal, to make it's not your problem, it's not his problem. He's not trying to point fingers. He's saying, well, we're all together in this mess. It's you, me, we're all in it together. Let us find a solution to our problems and get ourselves out of this big mess that we have created. You get this kind of like closeness that everybody here is together. That's one of the things we can talk about. He's using inclusive pronouns. Have we seen him using you anywhere? Did he use the word? Yes, he did use your. So he's also using direct speech or direct address to address the readers on a personal level. He's kind of making them feel the importance and the urgency of the things he's trying to say. These are all your inference and developments of every device. We have to keep these in mind. Okay, a couple of decades ago, he's using some information here. It was considered to be a social fox pass. I have to see what that is. And if there is something like, for example, I have no idea what that is, they'll give you a little index over here, and you would have to go to the end, and you would find the glossary here, the meaning. Etiquette means good manners. That's something you should know. This is something you might not know, and that's why they gave you the meaning. It's an embarrassing mistake. We all have at least one embarrassing mistake in our lives, don't we? Okay, to telephone someone after 7 or 8 p.m., whereas now we're often swiping away WhatsApp notifications late into the night. I'm guilty. We all are guilty. There you go. That's why he's saying we. The reason why he says this mistake, this problem, we're all guilty. And that's what to keep this, not to make anybody feel guilty and feel like it's their problem. He's trying to persuade the readers in a way. The only reason why he's giving these commands is to make them kind of like understand the effects of this, all this social media and whatnot. We all need time to switch off and replicate in order to perform at our full potential, perhaps. That's really full capacity and protect our, oh my God, what's going on? And protect our mental health. If you find that you are reaching for your mobile phone whenever there is a lure in your day, when there's a lull in your day, for example, when you are on a train home or waiting for a friend to arrive, it may be time to introduce some restrictions to change your technology habits. So that's really annoying because I use my phone all the time in these kind of scenarios. So I'm guilty here. Look, that's what the text is doing. Try putting your mobile phone in a different room or turning it in airplane mode in the evenings. That's a very good advice. That's a really good advice. And something, look at this. We are seeing numbers, we're seeing numerical data, we are seeing statistics. These are numerical data. You can call them numerical data, you can call them statistics, whatever you desire. And he's using real life colloquial terms: Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. We all are over there. You'll find your uncle over there using Snapchat. So it's something we all can relate to. He's using credibility, credible resources, credible information, or a US poll of millennials. And then you can see numbers, some sort of, you can call this numerical data. Let's call this numerical data. And let us say these percentages as statistics. Percentages are somewhat statistics in a way. So these all will fall in credibility. Why so? Well, he's using these terms: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, so that it resonates with the readers. Nobody uses, I don't know, like nobody uses Skype anymore. And then there are some messaging apps like Emo, and I don't even know, Viber or something, those things. Nobody uses those anymore. Everybody uses Facebook, Instagram. They should have included TikTok. These are there. This is a tricolon. Distractions. He's highlighting, and this is how we're going to talk about. We use the analysis. Whenever we find a device, we try to use. I like this particular. When we were learning, we learned this particular way of analyzing a particular device, and we always use this. Never, 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 never. Or I should say, whenever you're describing a device, whenever you're analyzing a device, never miss out any of these. The first one is a statement. And we're going to say the writer uses a tricolor. Quotation is basic. QU is quotation. That's your proof. I think I got the spelling wrong. Yep, I did get the spelling wrong. This is inference, meaning why did the writer use it? And then you're going to talk about the development. Now, how would we devise an answer like answer here? Well, we would say that the writer has used a tricolon, this, to highlight the three fundamental um, social media platforms everybody uses. And these are names, these you could also say these are colloquial names that everybody's familiar with. He's using these to show that he's well aware of what's happening on this kind of like, this is, well, everybody's on it, but let's just say more often than not, you can make this deduction. These three things are where you're more likely to find teenagers and young adults wasting their time on. Nobody uses, no uncle uses Instagram, and Snapchat is something girls use all the time. I got that stereotype from YouTube. But there you go. What are you getting from this message? What are you getting from this tricolon? You're getting the fact that he's trying to reach out to the teenagers. He's trying to reach out to the people, to the bulk of teenagers who uses these social media platforms. And why is he doing this? He's trying to get to his point. He's trying to get their attention and get them engaged and kind of tell them why it's bad or why it's not bad. And this is why he's saying that men check their social media platform at least 10 times when they're out with friends. This is really true. I can definitely relate to it. And he's using facts. This is facts. This is statistics. And just this, men check their social medias a lot. This is just a fact. We do check our social medias a lot. Not quite often. Maybe I don't want to get into those debates. There's going to be a fight, World War III, if I say girls check their phones more often. But there you go. The principles of an adequate aim is to make us, again, he's using inclusive, more deliberate in our social media use so that we can build a profile that represents what we really are. This is a really beautiful statement. Whether you are on social media, is whether you say on social media is the public domain, and once something has been posted, you can never retrieve it. So it's vital that you are selective what you post, share online. Very important. We can take this into, this is not a device, this is not any word analysis, this is just a sentence we've read, and we can come up with, we can devise our own statement, our own perspective comment. And the comment is that the writer is warning us to be careful with what we decide to post, as he's saying that whatever we post could have an effect on the people around us and potentially you yourself. That's what the perspective comment is. And if you can write something like this, the examiner is going to love it. Be a role model. Children and young people learn the rules of acceptable social behavior from their surroundings. So make sure that you model the adequate rules. Okay, first and foremost, this particular section, by reading this, we get the idea that this is this is a formal text. Few reasons why. In register, you would have to talk about whether the text is formal or informal. The reason why it's formal, it talks about a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of polls and profile and all this kind of like social status and all this kind of buzz. And children and young people now this is directed to the parents. Be a role model. He's trying to infer that if the parents are on social media, they're doing TikTok, their kids are gonna get the same message. He's pointing at the parents. So this can't be an informal text because no teenager is a parent. It's directed to the adults. It's directed to the, well, it's you could say it's a general. There are two things you could infer. This is a formal text, no doubt in it. You could say either two. One, it's directed to the adults. Two, it's directed to the general public. Anyone and everyone should read this text, and there's something for everyone from of different ages. He's using iPads. Look at this: children iPads, iPad kids playing Roblox all day. He's kind of nitpicking all these kind of he's categorizing everybody. So this could be for adults, for teachers and parents, or you could say the text is directed to the mainstream people, the mainstream audience. Nobody's the target audience. Anybody can read it. There's a section for everyone. This section could be parents and teachers could be benefited by reading this section, so on and so forth. Let's quickly wrap it up. Um, he's using iPads, gadgets to keep them occupied while eating out as a family. This is a really big stereotype, and he's pointing the common rhetoric. And screens can, while screens can solve short-term surveillance issues, keeping children quiet, it also limits their opportunities to learn. Okay, he offers the advantage, the pro, then he suggests the con. And the con seems to be more, the disadvantage outweighs the advantage. So what he's saying that um, using technology could give you a temporary solution, but it's affecting the permanent. But it doesn't really have a permanent solution. If anything, it affects the health and whatnot. And people often struggle to regulate their own social media. This is going to be a complete inference. Okay, now how do we write the text? How do we write the text? Now I'm going to take a different. Let's just write it over here. Now we're going to start with question 3. Now let's look at the title. I have to go really fast. The title is a guide to digital. Okay, now this was an article. Now we can say that the article begins with the heading or the title, this, right? It's establishing a point. It's establishing the fact that the um, text is going to be an instructional text, advisory text. It's going to be full of advices. So we can say, now, for the sake of this particular text, adapted from an article on the social media. So we could do a few things. We could just say the narrator, or we can say the website or the institution. Let's just say the narrator for this. The writer. There is a writer. There we go. There is a writer. So there we go. Okay, very weird text. They normally give you the writer. Okay, the writer begins. We're going to start like this. The article with the heading or with the title, and you're going to copy the title. Just copy and put it in. Ta-da! There you go. And we're going to say what it does effect on the readers. First, we talk about what it suggests. What message is the title giving off? And then we're going to talk about the effect. This is kind of like the statement. We just said the statement. There's a heading. We're giving the quotation. We're going to give the inference, and then we're going to give the development. Simple structure to follow, yet some of you forget this, which is really bad. Immediately it establishes a definitive. I got the spelling wrong, I know. And instructional or instructional. I got to spell. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Instructional tone. We'll fix the spelling errors later, right? And then when he says good, and whenever he in his text he talks about good manners, the starting good manners, right? This is important because he says good manners in online. Good manners in online. That is something that shows that what can we say? Yes, we can just literally look. This is what we're going to do. Instructional tone. This makes the readers. This grabs the reader's attention. Simply, this grabs the reader's attention, making them want to read the text. Moving on to credibility. The writer presents. We're going to give this topic sentence. Presents his ideas. What was his ideas about? But his ideas about the topic. About the topic in a credible manner. Okay. Okay, the writer has used, now we're going to use our statement. The writer has used. Now, he used a few things. First thing he used was we're going to go to the inclusive later. We're going to use these things over here. These data and all this kind of stuff. So the writer uses a tricolon. Although normally we talk about tricolons in structure, we're going to talk about it over here. The writer uses a tricolon or tribute, or you could call it a triplet. Some people call it triplet, to underline the three fundamental, or the three main social media platforms people use and use. The use of these colloquial terms attracts the eyes, attracts or resonates with the more younger audience, and grabs their attention. Later on, we're going to connect this. Later on, he addresses staggering statistics, like when he says, and we're going to take this percentages, 76% of women and 70 men. Oops. Now I'm going to do something. I'm just going to cut this and make it a percentage. I'm going to cut this and make this a percentage. Are you allowed to do it? Maybe. Better not to, but I think it gets a little too big. Percent of men and women checked their phones often. Or what was it, the context? At least 10 times. Phones, check their phones. At least, and we're going to quote that 10 times over there, 10 times when going out with friends. This point is evident and well proven, since it's a poll from the US, or it's a data, we could say it's a data, or an information, you could say, from the US millennials. The writer uses we want to say that this is we can't say this is an expert's opinion. Nobody here is an expert. We can say he's using information from a well backed up research institution or organization. The fact that he quotes researches or polls from such a well researched and backed up, a well researched institution or organization is in this is organization. I was about to write Nazi. Organ. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Organization shows that the writer is well credible. Furthermore, the fact that this is my own saying, people check their phones, the message or the point or the rhetoric, or the stereotype, stereotype stereo. Oh my god. Stereotype that the people check their phone is a fact or persuades the readers on a factual note. Now, we're going to talk about the effect. We gave so many devices. We talked about their inference. Now, there is one effect all of these have. The writer is using these statistic. He uses a statistic. He uses a triplet. He uses a backed up research organization, an expert's opinion, kind of like that, all to do one thing. All of these highlights how, or you can, let's just make it more specific. All of these numerical data and research highlights how the use of social media is eroding our ethics and communication skills. Because, I mean, or you could just say ethics and relationship with others, relationship or personality. You could give any inference here, whatever whatever message you got from the text. I got the fact that it's killing your personality. This shows this effect, this negative effect. The writer, you can say that the writer is trying to present a negative effect to the reader such that they change their personality. The writer shows all these negative effects such that the readers, or you could just say, let's not give that. We gave a lot of writer's effect. All this research, these makes the readers reconsider their etiquettes. We saw the fact that the writer used this in his text, etiquette, and it will be wise if we talk about it in our own text as well. Etiquette, and perhaps change themselves or get good habits, right? He said someone over here in his habit. Somewhere over here, he talked about habits. Can't find it. Anyways, this would be your credibility. Now, moving on to structure. The writer has presented his ideas in a well structured manner. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about in the structure is the fact that the writer has used subheadings. The writer has used. Now, you could do two things. You could say imperative subheadings or like interrogative subheadings. You could say that interrogative subheadings, or you could just say subheadings and then connect that he didn't just use subheadings for making the text small. His subheadings are also little informations and commands for the readers to kind of digest and kind of like follow through. You could definitely talk about that. So let's do that. Let's do that. The writer has used subheadings in his text. That's your statement. Now we need to use quotation. Proof. Give proof, evidence. Examiners love that, and you have to give it. That's your first proof. And another proof. Give two proofs. So all is good. I personally like to take the small ones. The baby quotes, they're easy to write. Okay. Text, like these things. Okay. Now we're going to use a very common inference. The use of subheadings breaks down large portion of his text into small bite-sized chunks for the readers to digest and help them navigate through. Now you have to get the context. You navigate through them through what? What is he trying to navigate them? Like what are the readers navigating? Well, they're navigating this is like an exploration. We're exploring the effects and positivities of the social media, and it's guiding us, the guide of digital manners. Navigate through the guide. We can just copy this thing, guide to manners. That's the writer started off with. Started off with. I'm going to fix anything that doesn't sound well, doesn't sound nice. The use of subheadings breaks down large portion of text into small bite-sized chunks for the readers to digest and help them navigate through the guide. Or you just make this a little bit better. The guide the writer has to offer them when it comes to digital, what was it? Communication? Manners. Oh, digital manners. By the way, it's an interesting thing. Digital manners. I thought manners couldn't be digital. All he's trying to infer is offline and online. How do you behave? That's what the main message is. But you could talk about it's very interesting digital manners. So if there's digital manners, it means there's something that is non-digital manners. It's the same thing. Offline behavior and offline online behavior. That's what he's trying to get to. Okay. Moreover, his subheadings. Please do not say subtitles. One of you wrote subtitles in the text in the previous the last some it was in June 2022, and one of you wrote subtitles. That's not quite right. Say subheadings, not subtitle. Subtitles is different. When you watch a movie or something and it translates into a different language, the little thing on the bottom, that's your subtitles. So don't confuse the two. They're not the same thing. Moreover, his subheadings are commands that the readers, or you could say interrogative, you could say the readers can digest. We won't say that anymore. Moreover, his subheadings are commands and advices, advices that the readers should heed to, making his text sound more powerful and urgent. When I say get out, do this, do that, it gives this urgency of this, it gives this sensation of urgency. When I say get out, you don't sit there and leave the room 2 days later. I said get out, you go out, you leave the room now. Creates this urgency. Do it now. Take the action now. Climate change. The writer uses subheading. Plant trees. That's a command. Go out, buy a tree, plant it at the side, at the in the footpath or something. It gives this command. Do it now. So we can definitely infer to that particular thing. Okay. What else? What else did he use? What else did he use? Any rhetorical questions? I have not seen any rhetorical questions. Has he used any rhetorical questions? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Okay, now let's do something interesting. Let's see. Yes, another thing we can do. Normally we talk about this in the inference, but we can definitely talk about this over here. The fact that the writer uses, if I go back over here, and he used the words remember a lot. Remember, and then all this kind of stuff. Respect. He used these words. And these are, again, imperative commands. So, again, it shows that the writer wants us to take these advices really carefully and heed to these advices attentively. Okay. Anything else that he used here? Any word analysis? He used a lot of hyphens. If not, okay, we can talk about it. However, new opportunities come with new responsibilities, and how we behave online is just as important. This is a simile. He's comparing something. Just as important, and Yes, so we're going to talk about this. The writer also uses a simile when he says, holy God, where's my G? Where's my J? Just as important, if not more so, if not more so, as our behavior offline. As our behavior offline. Okay, what we're gonna do is we are going to. The writer also uses a simile. Give me a moment, if you. I'm so sorry. Okay, are you here? Can you hear me? Can you make some noise? Yes or no? Hello. I think I'm here. If you hear me, please say yes. Make some noise so I can um so I know I'm back. Okay. The writer also uses a simile. What I was saying was the writer uses a simile when he says just as important. Okay, just as important. This just as important, if not. So these hyphens create again it creates a climax in a way. Again, it's like separating the important things. And he wants us to kind of focus each and every one of these phrases. Like, how am I supposed to explain this? Let's just write it and I'll explain it later. The writer also uses simile when he says, okay, the there's a few ways you could say this. um, we could um, okay, let's break it down. Let's break it down. Just as important, if not so, if not more so, as our offline behaviors. This simile compares how our behaviors, how people's behaviors. Oh my God, what am I writing? Or adequate. You could say adequate, but we said adequate um, once, so I don't want to say that again, right? I don't want to say you could say that again. You could say that again. 1 minute. Why is my microphone not? I can't say if it's on or not. I think it's on. Okay. Yeah. So what I was saying, you could say that. So we could say adequate, or you could say behavior. Either one is fine. Either one is fine. Behavior. Why is it? Why am I getting this wrong? Behave. Veer. I think that's how you pronounce it. There you go. Um, the compares how people's behavior. It was over there. Oh my God! I could have just copied this. I feel like an idiot. This simile compares how people's behavior is, or you could say how people's behavior should be good, both online and offline. The hyphens here breaks down three of these things. The first thing, if not more so, this phrase shows the importance. It highlights how important it is, what is so important as our behavior offline. The hyphen or the phrase, you don't have to talk that deep, just offline and online, giving the or sending the message to the readers, sending the message to the readers that they must um, change their ways of behavior. They must there's a way of saying it, punctuation. Punctuation could sometimes mean behavior. They must have good punctuations everywhere. Okay, this is going to be really quick. It's not going to be too big, but there you go. Okay, register. I'm going to say that the writer maintains. It was a formal text, remember, a formal tone, a formal, yet it was something accessible. Accessible. Okay, accessible. Register. Now, the first thing we saw that the writer has used we, you, all this kind of stuff, right? So we can say that the writer uses inclusive pronouns, like when he says inclusive pronouns, we and our, we and we. What the hell? We and our. There you go. We and our throughout his text. Right? Now, what was the inference of using we and our? Well, it is the big default effect is it makes you feel homey vibe, but that's just stupid. We can definitely step up our game, and what we're gonna say is the fact that he's addressing he's addressing how guilty we all are, and so the writer or whoever the hell wrote this article, they want everyone to feel they don't want anyone to feel like an outcast. You could you could say definitely that. There's a handful of ways you can interpret this. I personally, I think this is one way to do it. The writer uses inclusive pronouns, we and our, throughout his text to make the advices sound engaging, more engaging and less intimidating. More engaging and less intimidating. Moreover, intimidating. These pronouns gives the impression that the readers are not the only ones at fault. Rather, we all are. Furthermore, don't say plus, don't say also. You could say also, but try to use furthermore and more to keep your text sound. You know, you don't want to make it sound too friendly. It's not a letter, so kind of keep that formal punctuation up. Furthermore, he uses personal pronouns like I and. No, that's not a personal pronoun. That is a personal pronoun. Why are we saying personal pronoun? We should be saying direct address. I'm so sorry. He uses direct address when he says you, your, you and your, you, to reach out to the readers on a personal level, or personal note. Personal note doesn't go, personal level. What's the effect? This gives the impression to the readers as if the writer is directly talking to them, and holy god, and whatever advice is being made directly applies to them. This makes the, do we say his? We don't know the writer's gender, so we can't really say his or her. I have to read it again. This makes the text sound more raw and natural, making the readers heed to the writer's advices more attentively. Very common way of writing this. Okay, now, what else do we see? What else was there? We see the fact that um, the writer has done a few things here. He used the word, I don't know if you remember, he used the word, where was it though? I have a hard time. He used, let's find it. He used the word honestly somewhere. And I don't remember where he used it. I hate this all the time. Every time we're doing papers, looking for that one word that you don't remember. Mm, he used it somewhere. I remember very vividly. I remember vividly, very vividly, that he used the word honestly somewhere, right? Um, okay, how does he end though? Let's look at this. He ends the text by addressing. He ends the text um, by addressing the adults. We could definitely talk about that. He ends his text by shifting. We could say shifting his. Oh, we can't say his. Well, we can. Well, wait a minute. We can go back to the question. Well, we can't. Too bad. No gender over there. So again, the gender is we don't know. The writer is anomalous. We don't know who the writer is. The writer ends the text by shifting the focus to the adults. How so? Um. Okay. He says he addresses the common rhetoric of giving iPads or screens to this. We can end it like that. I'm going to write this at the bottom. I'm going to try to kind of like hook up an answer. He points out to the common thing. Parents, this is something I got from the text, parents do to to solve their or to keep their children. Some guy wrote children's in their exam and I was crying so loud. Children quiet. Yet the writer says that it does more harm. There's a few ways we can say it, right? We can say the writer says that it does more harm than the benefits. That's the message. Well, that doesn't really make any sense. That's one of the things. Or you could say that we could say that it does it does more harm than good than benefits. That's not English. RIP English. That's grammatically incorrect. But that's one of the points you could say that the writer says it does more harm than good, and that it it only provides a temporary, right? Temporary solution, right? As the sibilants solve short term suggests. Sibilants short term suggests. So the message we're getting, and there's going to be a fundamental message we can talk about at the end of the text. That is over here, that he addresses the big group. And he says something at the end. He says cyberspace instill good habits as soon as they get their mobile phones. Remind better. We didn't read this, did we? I think we skipped it. Okay, so at the end, what we can say, Siebel suggests, rather, he reinforces the readers to engage and build communications, engage and keep themselves busy with other things. And then he said something like, what else did he say? He said something like, okay, yes, and that manners, are the, he said the word glue in his text, glue, holding the digital world together. Right? We can say that. Um, urging them to um, to give particular attention to their punctuation, or you could say behaviors. There you go. Okay, I've done a really. There's this time thing. I have to do it really fast, so some of the answers might be wonky and not the best. Okay. Question: how long have we been rolling? Question 4. In lines 25 to 37, the writer gives some reasons why manners might have changed recently. Line 25 to 37, 25 to 37, 35 to, I forgot the number. What was it? 35 to, oh my god. What the heck? 25 to 37, 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 25 to 37. He says something that, over here, right? Somewhere over here. So let's go through it. 25 to 37. Okay. The widespread availability of smartphones has created a culture of instant communication. That's your answer. Culture of instant communication. Brief textual exchanges. There you go. A lot of this. I don't know if you guys did that paper. There's this paper where the text was. I think this has very close similarities with June 2022. That was where the writer was saying importance of grammar and how technology and particularly social media has ruined our communication skills. This has kind of that message. So those who did that particular paper will find this, or whoever, those who gave this particular exam in that sitting, they probably found this paper easy because it's kind of like repetitive. It feels very common. There you go. That's your answer. Question 5. I have to go back all the way. Using the section, does including punctuation in text show aggression? Identify 2 points that the writer makes about online communication. So that's a subheading. Both texts use subheadings. That's a good thing. Does over here. So he says 2 things about texting. Okay. Formal grammar and punctuations were once considered essential in all written communication. Today, texting and online communication often involves informality, so the texts are more informal. We could say that texts, that's your first point, would be texts are more informal. The second point should be, let's read the text, informal with emojis. So texts often use emojis. That would be your answer. Text nowadays use more emojis. That is so true. If somebody doesn't use an emoji, they're probably an old man. That's how we treat them, right? Boring. So that is definitely true. So this tells us this text is going to have some really harsh reality, just like much like the text one share. Both of the texts share a common motive. That's a good thing. When we do question 7, which we will have to do today, I'm going to cry, but we have points to talk about, and that makes it sound less scary in a way. Would grandma approve the new rules of etiquette? Now that's a really interesting beginning. Um, it does something. It does something really important. It first of all, right at the bat, it establishes this comparison of tradition. When grandma was living, when she was going to school, she definitely didn't have an iPhone. She didn't have internet. She didn't have all this social media and this kind of stuff. She didn't find the necessity to go on a date and kind of post that picture. So what is the writer trying to do? He's trying to compare the new rules of etiquette, new rules, the new generation, the new form of communication with the old one. Now this is a really interesting contrast. This is a really good comparison, and it does a few things. You know what? I'm gonna write the answer as we go along. So the writer, what was her name though? Michael Price. Wow, Michael has a price on his name tag. Name. That's really good. Michael Price. Michael Price starts off with this particular. Um, Michael begins. I'm pretty sure her. Yep, she's a girl. Michael Price begins her article with the. Now this is a really provocative title. We could say provocative title. Would grandma approve? Would she approve? She probably wouldn't. Uh, New rules of etiquette. There you go. Now this immediately, or this this establishment, it establishes. What does it establish? A comparative rhetoric. Or it establishes comparative theme, right? Between I'm trying to think of a better way of writing it. Traditional. You could say traditional values and modern habits. How so? Babbits? Oh my God. Habits. Oh my God, there's just one B. Why so? Well, we got this from here that it was essential. It was a requirement. It was it was a value, a traditional value. Punctuations were once considered. It was a traditional thing. So we can definitely infer that. That's not wrong. And the fact she is funny in a way. The word grandma here, right? And what's it doing? It's the word grandma here is not particularly indicating somebody's granny. Here it kind of means it resembles this old symbol of etiquette, right? So it kind of gives the fact that it gives the fact that the reader it gives the impression to the readers that society has evolved, going from old rigid grandma to modern world. It gives this impression that so much has changed. Yet, probably it might be a contrast, yet nothing has changed in a way. It's just how we communicate. Communication is still there. The way we do it just changed. So that might be the message. I don't know. I haven't read the text. So we can talk about it. But here, the reference to grandma, 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 right, acts as a symbol. We could say symbol of rigid, old fashioned etiquette. Can we say that? Yes, we can definitely say etiquette. Giving the writer's impression, or you could say positioning, or you just say making the writers feel and reflect on how much Society has changed or evolved. Society has evolved. Evolved. That is something we can say. Now, this creates, and we're going to see the development, this creates a nostalgic, that's not here pronounced nostalgic, where do you go wrong? There's an A, nostalgic, there you go, nostalgic questioning tone. It's making them questioning tone. That has really that much, has really society changed that much? Has it changed to that extent where we are completely like the older generation would find us weird in a way? Is there really no values we share in common anymore? So this is really important. Making the audience um, ponder the idea, or ponder, that doesn't go. Making the audience receptive to the idea that manners are um, this is what it's giving. The manners, they're still there, but now they evolved, they changed. That manners um, are not dead, but they are merely different. Okay, now let's get into the reading part, the most annoying thing to do. The last time you hosted a party, again, that's the first thing you see. You and we both are using you and we both have similarities, which is, well, they're too similar. What are we gonna compare in question 7? Well, let's see. The last time you hosted a party, did the half of the people you invite let you know whether or not they could make it? When you see someone entering a building behind you, do you hold the doors for them? No, I'm not that manner. I'm not that good. Do manners do manners still matter, or have so we're seeing that the writer is starting off with a rhetorical question, right? So she starts off with a rhetorical question, and some of her subheadings, almost all of them are all of ooh, this is interesting. Notice something. The previous text subheadings were imperative subheadings. Her subheadings, however, are interrogative subheadings. Do you think it's important? What's your opinion? What's happening? It's like questioning the readers. She has some, she's kind of interrogating the readers, right? We can see that. Okay, let's keep moving. Have manners changed over time? How we interact with each other has undergone a significant transformation in the past generation. The rise of the smartphones and social media has fundamentally altered how we communicate, often diminishing face-to-face interaction and replacing them with text, tweets, and emojis. These are very common topics in IELTS exams, in English exams. These topics are way too common. Way too common. Technology, effect of technology with the modern world, communication, school, work, all these kind of stuff. So this is a really common topic. The shift has undoubtedly impacted the way politeness is perceived. Politeness is perceived. Alliteration sounds really nice, particularly among the Generation Z, the Gen Z. This is something credible. He's using, he's acknowledging the new viewpoint, right? So that's good. The generation to grow up entirely in the digital age. However, it isn't just in those Gen Z who behave differently from their grandparents and great grandparents. So we see that the writer is going to be comparing traditions and values when it comes to communication and culture. This is her goal. For many previous generations, she's comparing it. Certain manners were considered pillars of social etiquette. Writing thank you notes and after receiving a gift, putting your napkin in your lap before you start eating, and using proper grammar and punctuation in written communication. A big sentence, big sentence. She uses a long sentence, right? Now, what is the long sentence doing? It's giving the fundamental um ethics of communication. It's giving it's summarizing the. Ooh, this is good. I'm gonna write this down. Just wait, just wait. It summarizes how etiquette was defined back then. This is the point that came in my mind. If I don't write it now, I'm gonna forget it. So I'm really sorry. We'll go through it later. This is what comes in my mind. This is a summary of how etiquette was defined back then. How is it defined now? Today, there you go. She's defining it. However, these traditions seem rigid, less rigid. So we did talk about the word rigid back then. So that's good. To some, particularly members of Gen Z, a text message of thanks might suffice, and using punctuation in text may be seen as aggressive. Interesting. I'm kind of getting into this. The writer has gotten my attention. We see COVID-19. So she's using terms that everybody can relate to. Okay. The shift in etiquette can be attributed to several factors. And this is not the first time the rules of politeness have changed. Less than 100 years ago, not wearing a hat to church or other formal functions was considered the height of rudeness. Wow, how do we get to this from that to this? The widespread of availability of smartphones has created a culture of instant communication, while where brief textual exchanges have replaced the formal written communication. This increases two-income homes. The increase in two-income homes has meant less time for parents to instill traditional manners to the children. Both texts talk about child management or managing children. We see this. Text one talked about iPad kids. Text two is also talking about something really familiar. So there is this thing, like the common thing, same topic, very similar topic, but they probably have different values or different reasons why they are talking about it. Let's see, we have a common point to write about, and that's always something good. And more recently, the isolation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic further eroded opportunities. The writer is using the word eroded. This is such a common thing. Eroded. Eroded means something that goes away, fades away, dies, dying flame, something like that. It has eroded opportunities to face-to-face social interactions and the practice of etiquette in real-world setting. So the writer is acknowledging the fact that COVID-19 has made people less social. Made people less social. That's something he's agreeing upon. Decades ago, people generally lived in neighborhoods where they knew everyone. They grew up in the same city where they got married and raised their own children. The significant increase in mobility results in less of a sense of collective responsibility to this text is formal, no doubt. Too much wording, jargons, professional phrasing. This is a formal text, no doubt. So both texts are formal. This is a very rare case where we find both texts are formal. Either both of them informal or one of them is formal, the other one's informal. But this one is a rare case. We get both of them. Both of the texts seems to be formal. Um, the person walking past you is less likely to know you and correct your bad behavior. This is rarely a fear of threat of "I'll tell your mother" when these public witnesses have considered bad behavior. This is a somewhat kind of like you could say a rhetoric that used to be true. That if this is you could say this is like a joke in a way. "I'll tell your mother" sounds kind of humorous in a way, um, but it also kind of underlines how we would at least give perfunctory smiles and behaviors. We would kind of fake our behaviors, at least for the sake of not losing our status in society. That has faded away as well. We have become shameless. He's trying to say that in a way. As society has become more accepting and equal, that's a problem. The reduction in division between classes and races means that some rules about behavior have also become less strictly enforced. The increase in global travel and cultural mixing also change expectations as people witness and accept different manners and behavior. That's really true. Are thank you notes old fashioned? Once the foundation of polite society, the handwritten thank you note. There's a few devices here to talk about. Not much devices to talk about. Mm, not much. Okay, let's keep reading. Well, older generations. One of the things about the writer, this might go into structure. He's comparing two things. Right, previously he compared old things. This will be written in our. This will be incorporated in our section, the structure section. Why am I stuttering? Where he's doing a nice job. He's comparing the old and the present in a very beautiful way. That's the old. That's the present. Right. That's how he's kind of going about his way, and that's a nice way of decades ago old stuff, new stuff. So that's how it's comparing. That's a really nice way of comparing. We can talk about that in our structure since devices lack in this text. Uh, while older generations see the necessity of expression of gratitude, again, old and new. Is comparing the two generation. So her text is very judgmental in a way. Gen Z, you might find a text message more appropriate for the informal nature of their communication style. When digital photo design and printing arose, busy parents started printing a sample thank you photo card. Old fashioned stuff. The thank you text is an extension of that change. Interesting. It's including a punctuation in text show aggression. That's the catchphrase. That's like the punchline. That's like the question of this text. Is it? It's a weird thing. And the writer uses hyperphora in her own in her own text. Well, and this is interesting. Her subheadings are so weird, right? Her subheadings are weird because sometimes it's a thank you, sometimes it's like thank you, what the hell, sometimes it's a command, sometimes it's a suggestion, most of the time it's some sort of interrogative question, rhetorical questions, and this particular one is a hyperphora. Hyperphoras are where the writer asks you a question and she gives you the answer. So she's like, does it matter? Well, absolutely, she's answering the question. So interesting writing structure, definitely. Okay, formal grammar and punctuation were once considered. Again, once. Oopsie, I didn't mean to select the whole text. Again, once we read this, while older generation might see that this as sloppy or disrespectful, millennials we see this term in both texts, and Gen Z might view it as a faster and more natural way to communicate. They see capitalization and punctuation as hostile. They see it as hostile, which confuses their elders. Older generations often lament. Oof, lament. The word lament means to think about something, like you're really giving your thought into it. You're pondering about the matter. How easily it is to misunderstand tone and meaning in texts. But digital natives develop their own rules to share exactly what they mean and how they mean what they say through these three emotions of very stupid text. Use of emotions, lack of punctuation, and more. This perceived lack of manners by some generations is a new use of language designed to increase communication. Okay, like pointless message. It's important to know that this generational shift in etiquette doesn't necessarily equate to a decline in respect or kindness. This is a very important point. It doesn't mean that it's a really important thing. And here's the thing. It just came in. It just a revelation. Both texts talk about modern like technology and social media. Text one, however, says how our behavior is affected by our offline and online behaviors are affected by social media. Whereas writer two is focused on how our communication and relationship, not quite, not relationship, how our communication is hampered. So both of them are very similar, but they have completely two different motives. That's the thing. So we found a really good motive, a really good comparing point. This is going to save our butts when we do question seven. It is important. Gen Z often express politeness differently, valuing. What does they value? I didn't know Gen Z's value anything. Authenticity and directness in their communication. A quick text message expressing thanks might hold the same weight as a handwritten note to them. This is kind of reassuring in a way. So this is nice. This is nice. And respect. The word respect was in text one as well. This is nice. So after saying all this, after insulting our new generation so much, not insulting, just highlighting the stark differences, the writer is saying, guess what? Despite these changes, they're not disrespectful. They're not evil or bad. They evolved to this malicious beast. That's not what he's saying. It's just how they express their words and their emotions has changed. That's all. They're no longer less polite. They're still the same type of people. The teenagers are it's the same everywhere, but it's just how they interact with others has changed. That's what evolved. That's what social media changed in them. Respect, consideration, and kindness, tricolon, remain the foundations of social society interaction. Through this tricolon, the writer establishes the three things that must be upheld all the time. It's like you could give an inference like this. However, the way we express these qualities may evolve with each generation, ultimately fostering a spirit of mutual respect and understanding is more important than rigid adherence to outdated rules. So the first thing we should understand and we should talk about is the fact that the writer sees this change with the goodwill. He has a goodwill towards these changes. We see that. He doesn't point fingers at them, at anyone. He's not saying that we should change in a way. He doesn't. He's just comparing them and saying, well, it's just in a different way. Whereas text one is like, no, we're bad. We're becoming more disrespectful. We're doing bad stuff. We're not talking to our friends. We're just watching. We're playing Roblox on our iPad. Something like that. He's pointing out the bad things. So that's a point we should keep in mind. This will help us. This will really help us when we start solving question seven. Now, enough yapping. Let's get into the text. Let's get into the writing part. Okay. So we did talk about the introduction. Um, and the text was also present. So we're gonna see how that goes. Okay. Now, we can say that what's her name? What we wrote it over here. Michael. Oops. Michael. Michael. Um we're gonna write this in a different way. Let's not suggest presents his or her ideas in an incredible manner. Let's say establishes. Michael establishes her credibility. Credibility. I'm gonna fix the spellings later. Through a balance, balanced perspective. This is what we have to talk about: perspective and acknowledgments. Acknowledgments and acknowledgments, or you could say balanced perspective that acknowledges both the, she said, old school and Gen Z. So we're going to quote those: old school and the Gen Z, right? And their viewpoints, basically, viewpoints. Okay. Then um, she talks about handwritten notes, right? So she's noticed this. She's noticed this firsthand, and so we can say that she this is something she has noticed, and that's what she's telling us. And so we can definitely say something like this, that she uses the first person perspective, perspective, mentioning her own observations of handwritten notes, right? Versus, you never write it like that, but you're going to say it like this, versus the quick text messages we saw in the text, right? Quick texts, which makes her voice sound more authentic and relatable. I can say that, relatable. Relatable. Okay. Then we saw something over here, somewhere in the previous page, perhaps at the end. Authenticity and directness. Authenticity and directness. These are abstract nouns. She uses these two abstract nouns to um, show the how do I say it? Psychological understanding, to show that how our behaviors have changed, how our ways of communication has changed. So we can say she um, we could say like this: her credibility, her credibility is further established. We said established once, but we can say it again. No worries, established. I'll fix the spelling later, guys. Established by referring to the specific cultural shifts, such as the move towards this guy, this authenticity and directness. All right. Now, these are by using these abstract. You could say abstract nouns. That's not wrong. Abstract nouns. They are abstract nouns. Abstract nouns. She suggests a deep. You could say many things here. Psychological. You could say psychological understanding. Understanding of why manners have changed. Furthermore, she acknowledges COVID-19, the effects of COVID-19, doesn't she? She acknowledges the effects of COVID-19. She acknowledges the effects of COVID-19 and describes its effect on, how does she describe it? Opportunities, its effect on people's opportunities as eroded, right? The word eroded is something you should talk about a little bit. The word eroded connotes to. Now, this is where, if you know the literal meaning of eroded, it's going to help you. And even in contextual, you could kind of get something that is gone. Connotes to something that is gone. But a better way would be something that fades away, or is worn out. Right? There you go. Implying how our opportunities, implying how its effects, were are detrimental. And it detriment and effect as it caused isolation. She implies that due to that this isolation plays some role behind the reason of such a dramatic change in punctuation. Okay. The writer uses subheadings, doesn't she? The writer presents her ideas in a well structured manner. She uses subheadings, interrogative subheadings, like, and you're gonna, again, same drill. You go and you find two of them. This is one of them. And you put it over here. And we're gonna look for something else. We're not gonna talk about that one, by the way. We're gonna do this later. We're gonna give 3 examples. And okay, now we have to think about the inference. Now, the normal inference, normally what it does, it breaks down a large portion of text. That is completely fine. Nothing about it is wrong. However, since these are interrogative, we should talk about how it makes them ponder, right? So these interrogative, how interrogative? Sure, we've said the word interrogative. Now, if you want, we could change it in a way, but let's just keep calling it interrogative. These interrogative subheadings, and you see the same thing. And I'm gonna do something. I'm really smart. Sometimes. I'm gonna copy this. I don't know if it was worth it. Interrogative breaks down of her. And we made a little mistake over here. It should not be his, because we don't know the first writer's gender of the writer's text. We have to see if we said again his. Moreover, the writer's subheadings. I'll have to fix it again when the writer says. When they say, you could say they as well. When they say, you could sometimes refer one person as plural when you don't know the gender. They could be, or when you don't want to reveal the gender, right? You could do that. Bite-sized chunks for the readers to digest and help them navigate. And before reading each section, these settings provoke their thoughts. She further uses a thoughts like the subheading, and we're gonna go and quote this little guy, the last subheading, which is a hyperfora. Right? There you go. Last subheading, which the last subheading that is in a hyperfora. That is a hypophora. There you go. Okay. Now, mm, what else? Anything else we can talk about in the structure? There you go. Oh yes, another thing we can talk about. Another thing we can talk about is how she's comparing these things, right? Her text, her text follows a comparative. It's not how you pronounce it. Com comparative comparative. There you go. Structure. It follows this comparing structure, and what it does, it weighing um outdated. Right? She talked about outdated rules in her text. This phrase was literally used, and so we can quote this outdated phrase, outdated rules. Oh my god, why is it so big? Why is it capital? Outdated rules. That's what she said. That was one word. Outdated rules against Gen Z or against modern, not Gen Z, about modern realities. Do some over here, over there, right? Each and every one of them, realities, realities. That's what she does. That's what she does, right? And how so? How so? Well, right over here, we saw a contrast between a handwritten note and a quick text, right? There was some over here. And the writer was saying, well, that's a contrast. In this sudden contrast, this contrast highlights that, right? It's a difference. You're comparing two things. Two things. So this is this is seen when she contrasts the handwritten note, just it was singular, with the quick text that people do now. Now, why is she doing this again? Why is she comparing these two things? Why is she kind of like talking to them in this close proximity? It's to do one thing. It's to again highlight how modern age is. Like, there's a few ways you could talk about it. I think you could say it like this. It's kind of disregarding the old traditions. That's where we're gonna connect this. We could definitely talk about this. Um, by placing these two examples in close proximity, the writer highlights how, or the efficiency, effi- efficiency of the modern world disregards, you could say disregards, or has abandoned. You don't want to say abandoned. That's too harsh. Just say world disregards the sentiment and ethics of the past. And we're going to talk about this one. This point is further established. How is it established? How? Well, this particular line is the one that establishes this point. Oopsie. Right? Using proper grammar, punctuation, putting in lap. What was it again over here? She talked about it somewhere. Here it was, I believe. I don't know. It was somewhere over here, right? I keep losing stuff. Why though? It was about putting a lap, like a napkin, right? Napkin on your lap. I think it was like this napkin on your lap before you start eating, right? Further establish when she brings back, when she talks about, when she um, recalls the old traditions of traditions of placing a napkin on your lap or using proper grammar and punctuation. As now, those are no longer the norms. And we would say something like this. This summarizes how etiquette was defined back then and how it has significantly evolved. She said this word in her text, evolved now. Okay. That would be our structure. Now, we're going to say Michael. I just say writer. The writer conveys her ideas in a formal yet sophisticated way or register. Now, a few ways she talks about it. Due to humor, she uses the humor. I'll tell your mother as a point of I'll tell your mother. That used to be a really dangerous threat, by the way. Like I don't know if you guys were playing in the park, in the playground, and you did something to a little kid, some kid, and the kid was like, "I'll tell your mother." You'd be shivering in fear. And when they did tell your mother, your mom would take you home, and as you were walking together, you knew every step you took. The closer you went to your house, your death was nearing. It was a really scary thing. Now, however, this is a joke. If somebody says, "I'll tell your mom," they're gonna be laughing. That fear no longer is there. To highlight how these threats would force people. What am I doing, man? People to uphold the best of best punctuation and ethics, not to, so that their social status were not threatened or social status were not attacked. It's a really posh way of saying it all of a sudden. Why did my English get this posh? Punctuation and ethics so that their social status were not attacked. Now, however, this is seen as a joke, right? We can say that. And she describes the traditions with some really words. She used rigid, remember? I think it was on that side. Forgot what it was. But she talked about rigid stuff, right? Rigid. The word rigid was written in it. She used the word rigid. So we can say she describes describes some traditional rules as rigid. I believe it was here. There it is. Adherence. Outdated. That's where she said outdated rules. Adherence. And we're going to talk about the word rigid, where the adjective rigid connotes to You guys should know what rigid means. It's like something brittle, right? Something brittle and likely to break under the pressure. Break under pressure. But here we're going to compare this with pressure. The pressure here is modern life. Pressure of modern life. Right? Similarly, or you can't say similarly. Well, you could just say something else. Consequently, or well, this is not question 7. Who cares? You can compare. You can relate stuff to that. What else can we say? I think she asked questions. No questions. Okay. Again, we see the fact that she's using we and all those kind of stuff. Since we don't have much points, we're going to talk about it. That Michael, was that Michael? I think it was Michael. Yep, that was Michael. So Michael uses inclusive pronouns like we and our to give the impression that to address her points. This makes the readers feel as if they are not alone and that the writer is acknowledging their flaws and changes, making them heed to her text or heed to her advices. More attentively, those very same inference. Then we're going to end in the fact that she now the ending is interesting. The ending is where this is the tricolon and remain the foundations, right? Interaction. And okay, so we're going to say like this. The writer ends the text, ends her text. Now it was on a positive note, on a positive when she, positive note. That's going to be our topic sentence. She uses the triplet. What was the triplet? Respect, consideration, and kindness. Remain the foundations. This is like she's using this as a metaphor, right? Foundation. It remains. She states that this is the foundation to underline the foundation of our ethics of communication. Communication, correct? We could say this. And this is my final comment where this is where we're going to say, although some of it has changed, they're not rude, they're not bad, they didn't evolve into something bad. It's just not that. So we can say, fostering a spirit. She explains how what can we say? How she explains while the decor of manners might have changed, might have changed or might change with each generation. The structure of kindness must or remains intact. Okay, ending it, showing that the writer doesn't have anything, doesn't hold anything against, doesn't have anything against, or doesn't have anything against the Gen Z style or method of communication. Rather, she urges. What does she urge? She urges them not to fuss about it, rather to keep fostering a spiritual mutual respect. Keep fostering spiritual respect and understanding each other. Understanding each other. We could say, rather, she urges them not to fuss about punctuations, or grammar. Let's say grammar. Punctuation. Rather, to keep foster. Foster means to to nurture something in a way. That's what it means. Foster family. I don't know if you heard the term foster family. They're the families that um, raise a child that happens to be an orphan. So they are like nurturing the child when that privilege was snatched away from that child by nature, something like that. Foster, it means to grow something. Foster a tree, like just give some love, and there you go. It says fix all the silly mistakes. When I type, I make mistakes. That's something I do all the time. There you go. This would be your question 6. Oh my god, it's been so long. I feel like I might not be able to do question 7, but we're gonna do it anyways. We have all the points we need to talk about, and so we are going to talk about it. That's not good. Why did I hear this sound? Is my earpods not connected? Those who are doing class right now, can you make some noise? Thank you, thank you. I got scared. Wait, I'll try that again. Okay, it makes a sound. I got scared for a moment because I thought my AirPods was not connected, and I started freaking out because none of it would have. Oh my god, it's such a relief. Good. I really thought I messed up. Anyways, let's go to question 7 now. Question 7 is something where it says to compare both of the questions, and we use the common structure where we have a common introduction, and the introduction goes something like this. Well, both topics share a same title name, and you're gonna come up with that name. And I can show you one of the structures. It's just that I have to find that. Or let me get my phone. Where's my phone? I'll bring this so we can remind ourselves how the structure looks. Let's send this to us. How do you send it? Give me a moment. Bear with me. Export PDF and send it to myself. Wait for the magic. Ta-da! Okay. There it is. So let's remind ourselves with the structure a little bit. Now, we normally have this kind of weird structure where we have something like this. I'm going to say, oh, sorry, this is the structure. And it goes like this. Let's use this one. Both texts are about a similar topic. The red part that you see is the part that you will have to change depending on the text. The writer's name is going to change every text. Every text you do, they're going to have a different writer. The topic and the register, whether it's formal or informal, is definitely going to vary text to text. So the red part is the part that you change. It's like um, the dependent variable, the independent variable. You change it all the time, rather, and all the other parts are the control variable, the constant ones. I'm using mathematical terms, although I don't even know what those means. This can be seen from the respective titles. Despite the writers having similar topics, their intent and purposes differ. We see this with this text because we see both of them are talking, both of them are addressing the modern calamity that social media has brought upon us. It's like a curse. Whereas text one only talks about the negative sides. We've seen him talking about the negative sides. Text two talks about the positive side and how sometimes it could be misinterpreted as negative, but it's actually positive. Text one is informal, written by Jen Dull. Well, this was in that for that particular text. In our case, text one and text two is formal, so we would have to change this part. This part should have been red and bigger, but I didn't do it for some reasons. And you talk about um, what the text is about, and you do the same thing, and then you say this last phrase where both texts maintain an informal tone to keep their respective audiences engaged. In our particular case, we saw that the texts are formal, so all we would have to do is we would have to say the texts are formal. Now, how do you write the body paragraphs? And this is how we actually do it. This is the structure I gave. Follow this, and you're gonna get the marks. Trust me. Some of you, when you give mock exams, I recently checked some of your exams. None of you followed the structure, and guess what? Your marks were terrible. So, for now, let's focus on let's remind ourselves of the structure. The structure goes like this. You're gonna question 7 has 15 marks. I repeat, it has 15 marks. You will be given 5 pages, and those 5 pages are such that you write on it. You are supposed to write on those 5 pages, and your answers will be really big. That's why we give 3 big paragraphs. If you want, if you desire, you can give a 4th, 5th, or even 6th paragraph if you have the time. The time and space, definitely. Because if you don't have enough space, you're not gonna get new extra pages. So what we do is we say a common statement. And the statement goes something like this: that both texts talk about X, but they do it in a different way. Or text one focuses on it in details, whilst text two just disregards it. Then you're going to focus on that point. Text one talks about respecting others. Text one talks about social media, and you talk about it. Similarly, text two talks about social media, but text one talks about behavior issues social media causes. Text two talks about punctuation issues, how people communicate, grammar, how our ways of communication changes. So there you go, similarities and differences. And you do this for 3 paragraphs, and the last conclusion is this one. And I say this all the time. Please, 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 please write this. This one line will always guarantee an indicative point. This one line over here will always guarantee your 1 mark out of that 15. The introduction, however, the introduction has a max. You could literally, from writing that this fixed introduction, you can score up to 2 marks. Why? The first mark would be in the mark scheme that they are very similar, but they're different. And the second marking point would be about the register. What text one is register. And if you want, you could also include that text one is informal and engaging. Text two is formal, not engaging. This kind of perspective comment of one being engaging, one being fun, and the other being boring. This could also give you a mark. Sometimes it's in the mark scheme. And it's good to add these. It's better you add points and increase your probability of getting more marks rather than constricting them and restricting your points. That would guarantee that you get less marks given. And worst case scenario, what you write, if it's wrong, guess what? Your marks are gonna go away. So I suggest elaborate, write more, give more points. If one is incorrect, you're gonna lose mark, but that you're gonna make it up with another good point you made as you wrote your answer. I don't know if that makes any sense. So this is the structure we're gonna be using, and we're going to, how big is it? This is a very nice, wow. This is a very nice question 7. We're gonna try to use this structure. Look how it goes. This one page is one paragraph. That's your statement. Statement, the first line. This whole thing is actually one paragraph, and we divide it into subparagraphs. And this one would be this guy. Similarly, now by the way, you're gonna be writing similarly together. Like this is not gonna be separate. I wrote this just to differentiate these. There you go. You're similarly. Now you're gonna talk about text 2. There you go. Text 2. Right? And we somewhere over here we gave the difference. So this is a really nice structure to follow. It's better if you follow this structure. You'll have stuff to write. Now we are going to write question 7. Now, how are we gonna start? We're gonna start with like the same structure we used, both texts, because they talk about or explore the evolving nature of social conduct in modern age. That's something we understood. Right? But let's make a little specific. Specifically, focusing, fix the spelling later, focusing on how technology defined good manners. This is your point. You know, text 1 directly talks about good manners, whilst text 2 indirectly talks about good manners. How so? Well, having good punctuation and talking with a good tone and grammar with respect is also a definition of good manners. So text 1 directly talks about good manners, how behavior is going bad. Text 2 is like how our texting is changing, and that could, raise some questions regarding manners. That's what is going on. I don't know if that makes any sense. Okay, now this is what we're going to say, that they're same, but there is a very stark difference between the two. So we're going to say while the texts or while their topics are let's see the simile, sibilance, stark, no, strikingly similar, and I got the spelling wrong. Good old me. Strikingly, definitely. Yep, strikingly similar. I use a sibilance in my own writing. That's a good thing to do. They're intense, different. We're still in introduction. Text 1 is, and what was it? Instructional guide from the British institution or something, right? So it's an instructional guide titled. I'm going to copy this, make it a little bit bigger. It's too small. There you go. We're going to copy this and we're going to paste it over here. Now, remember, let's go back to the let's go back to this. What we do here is we say text 1 is informal or formal, and we say the title and we say what it does. And very briefly, just briefly in 2 or 3 lines, say what it's about. So we're going to say that this particular text aims to provide a definitive code of conduct. If you recall, this was in the text. So I'm going to quote it. Definitive, there's an E over there, an I. There you go. Definitive conduct. Okay. for the digital world. Now, when you try to compare something, you could say in contrast, or in contrast, you could say that, or conversely, you could say that. Conversely, text two. One thing to just, this is a redundant thing. When you write in your exam, try your best to write the numbers in words, although I'm going to be using numbers. I hate to type this in. This is really annoying. So I'll be using numbers, text one and text two. In your text, it's better if you write the numbers, although they won't cut marks if you write two. So just, again, it's a stupid thing, but I guess it's important in a way. Okay, text two is written. Written. What am I doing? Now, we didn't have a writer in text one, but we have a writer in text two. So we're going to quote her name by Mrs. Michael. Right? Um, Conversely, text two is written by Michael, where she talks about how the modern world has shaped our communication, and if and compares it with the previous generations. Right? That's what she does. Okay. Both texts, the last point, both texts are formal, but there should be a difference. Text one is more, one thing we saw, the text one is more like authoritative. Take control, B-roll, do this, take the iPad away, do this. It's like so serious. Come on, man. Whereas text two, however, is observational. Right? We could definitely infer that. But text one is more authoritative. No, is there any other word we can use it? No, authoritative. Why did I get the spelling wrong? Authoritative. Oh, I'm gonna cry. I hate when I type, I get spellings wrong. Authority. That's how you pronounce authority. There it is. I'm gonna cry. There is no I over there. There you go. It's more authoritative, whereas text two is more observational. Or observational. Should we say that? Fine, sure, no problem. Observational. There you go. Now, para one, B1. Okay. What was the first point that both texts talked about, and it was really good? Something we can compare. Well, both texts kind of like shifted from the physical to digital spaces, right? But they focus on different aspects. Text one uses communication, revolution, revelation. That's not a word. Revelation is a different thing. Revolution, right? And using the noun revolution, he's kind of like inferring something really permanent, right? Emphasizing the necessity of the netiquette, We're using alliteration over there. That's really good, right? And he said about digital footprint somewhere, digital world, digital footprint. So he's kind of, okay, let's see if we can infer something like this. Both texts address the idea that communication has shifted from physical to digital spaces. Yet, or but, let's say but, they focus on different aspects of this transition. Text 1 focuses on behavioral effects. Text 2 focuses on behavioral effects, yes, but it's like a sub branch of it. It's how we communicate. The way you behave, the way you communicate, the way you move, these are all kind of connected to behavior, right? So it's like a sub branch of it. Both of them are talking about that, but again, their points are a little bit different, and that's where we're trying to. There are like some small nuances, and we're trying to pick those things up and discuss them. Okay, so that was our that was like this kind of like this thing. And now we're gonna go to this one paragraph about text 1. It's a really big one. It's gonna take ages, but I'm gonna try to finish this as fast as I can. In text 1, the writer, he discussed about something. The writer, oh, we don't know his gender, their gender, discusses the communication revolution. Revolution meaning something has changed permanently. Revolution, using the noun. This guy over here, revolution, right? So he's using this noun. They're using this noun to suggest a permanent, and um, permanent change. What the hell? Permanent change, permanent shift in how we interact, right? And interact. There you go. We can stop there. Permanent shift. Can we make this in any way? We could say something like permanent and say make. We can say that. No, permanent. So just permanent shift in how we interact. That's good enough. Okay. Then the text emphasizes the necessity of the word etiquette. Necessity of etiquette. We're using a similar illustration, right? To prevent. Why do we need it? Why do we? Well, what was an etiquette again? It was a mixture of good conduct and good manners, right? So it's to prevent the digital world from becoming chaotic. The writer uses. Now, what did he use? We saw he used the word footprint, something footprint, digital footprint, modern footprint. Where was it? It was somewhere in the text. I remember. Wait, can we search over here? Can. Ooh, this is good. Footprint. Ta-da! Why do I just discovered something? This is a revelation. Oh wow, this is really good. Why did I not use it? This is something I should have used long before. There you go, digital footprint. So he uses this word. I feel so powerful right now. Technology, yes, evolved. There you go. Uses it now. This is a metaphor, by the way. Footprint, digital footprint, right? It's kind of like carbon footprint. It's like that remnants of carbon in it. It's like warning us in a way. It uses the metaphor digital footprint, right, to warn the readers. And you don't have to talk about much in details. Now, I see this all the time. Students, what they do, they like to do they start word analysis in question 7. You're not supposed you don't start word analysis in question 7. That beats the whole purpose of it. If you really want to put word analysis and language analysis, you show that beautiful skill of yours in question 3 and 6. Question 7, however, you only talk about their ideas and perspective. You bring those 2 points and you compare them. No need for in detail comparison. The word Happy means being happy. You don't have to talk about like it's really stupid, redundant. There is no marking. They won't cut marks, but those are just waste of time and content. The content is not marking points, and you will not get much marks. Yes, if there's a particular idea that's been described with a different word, that's a proper word analysis. Over here, you don't need to talk about the word footprint means, this and that. No, if there are two things being described, text one and text two, but you see text one describes that using a particular word, that word has a different effect that text two doesn't, show, then you can talk about it and that would be valid. To warn the readers that online behavior has lasting consequences, right? So um, positioning manners as a tool for self protection. What the heck? As a tool for self preservation, you could say that as well. Preservation. Similarly, now we're like in this phase. Now I'm going to go to the text two. Similarly, text two acknowledges the shift, but focuses on the effect. How do you say it? I'm trying to word it right. On the generational effect, you could say that. Generational effect. That's what we saw, right? She's comparing granny's, like grandma's time with our time. That's what she's trying to do, right? And her name, Michael. How do you pronounce her name? Okay, now it's getting a little annoying. Michael. Michael uses the term grandma. We talked about it. Text 7 is kind of like a copycat of text 3 and 6. So if you find good points over there, you just bring those points together, merge them together, talk about the similarities and differences, and ta-da, you get 1 mark. Not one more, like you get a paragraph. And you're gonna get marks. Now here's how marks go. You have 3 paragraphs. Each comparison could score 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark. So, like, I don't know if it makes sense. For text one, all the points you're making, it could score a total of 1 mark. Okay? It could score a total of 1 mark. Similarly, so say if you make very simple points and the points are right, you can get 1 mark here. And similarly, if you do something like if you write something good over here, you're going to get 1 mark over here if it's valid comparisons. If your comparisons are discriminating, you might get discriminating. There goes my weird accent. Discriminating, you might get 2 marks here and 2 marks here. So each paragraph, you could get 4 marks up to that. So if you write 3 paragraphs, you're going to get, 2 times 3, which is, no, sorry, you can get 4 marks. So 4 times 3, you can get 12 marks for just the body paragraphs. Your introduction could score up to 2 marks, right? Your introduction could score up to 2 marks. The fixed introduction could score up to 2 marks. So there you go, 2. So that's like what, 14 or something, 12 and 14. And your last sentence will always score 1 mark. There is your 15 marks. Now, of course, sometimes, not all the time, your paragraphs are going to be spot on and you might not get 2 marks. Like the thing is, for every point you talk about, say you talk about A, right? Text 1 has something A, and you have to refute that with text 2. And then over here, you say text 1 also has B, and you have to refute that with text 2. If you have A and they're good comparisons, you're going to get 1 mark for comparing point A. If you have point B and point B, good comparisons, you're going to get 1 mark for point B on this particular section. So it's like 2 marks over here and 2 marks over here. So it's like 1 mark for A, 1 mark for B, 2 marks, 1 mark for B, and 1 mark for A, 1 mark for A, 2 marks, 1 mark for B, 1 mark for B, 4 marks. That's how it goes. I think it's necessary you know how these things are marked because Sometimes some of you like to make short paragraphs. Sometimes some of you like to write only one comparison. That before you do it, know that it's going to cost you marks. The less things you have to compare, the less marks you're going to get. So these kind of structures, like always, if you follow the structure, you're likely to get at least 12 and above if your writing is all right. Okay. Grandma as a symbol to represent what should representing the old school rules of handwritten notes. We can say that handwritten notes. Is it repetitive? No. Make sure you don't repeat stuff. Then the examiner is going to think you just copied it and you might not get marks. Okay. Now we're going to start comparing a little bit. Unlike text 1, right? Text 2 uses com- comparative approach. We could say that. Trying to write this as nice as I can. Approach to show that while the medium has changed, the intent and ethics have not. Has not. Grammatical mistake, has not. Right? And we see this by when she talks about the letter scenario, right? So Michael notes that a quick text might hold, oh my god, might hold some weight. She says that it might hold some weight, right? It might hold some weight as a letter for for older generations, as a letter, or you say for younger generations, younger gen. While text 1, while text, or you can say text, while text 2 views them as evolving, text evolving expression used in alliteration of, she said they like authenticity. That's what they're expressing, authenticity. Text 1 sees as, now we're going to link something, eroding, use that word, and I'm going to use it as well. What was it? I keep losing it. Oh, I have this magical erode. I love it. There it is. Eroded. S sees as our personalities and opportunities eroding. That's the stark difference between. I sound like the Tweety Bird from Looney Tunes. That's the biggest difference. Okay. Parative. Okay. Now we see the word kindness and respect repeated, right? And I'm going to do this. Respect. There it is. Respect. And the word kindness has also been repeated. Kindness. Oops. Kindness and they have been repeated. Okay. But their purpose is a little bit different. So we're going to say both texts discuss the importance of kindness and respect, but they do it in different way, or you can say they employ different You can say like something different, like they employ different structure on a linguistic techniques to persuade their audience. In text one, how do we see him? How do we see the writer kind of doing that? Well, the way we see the writer actually employing these kind of stuff is by using imperative tone and kind of like these subheadings, imperative language. And it's kind of imperative subheadings. You can say that exactly. Imperative subheadings, right? And imperative languages as well, because we see the word be, do, respect, and then what else? Remember, he used the word check somewhere. You can check it out, always check. Oh my god. Over here, you see? Check. So, and there's another over here somewhere. Anyways, so he's using these imperative languages to kind of make the point and to kind of make it important, sound important, that kindness and these are really important. He wants this he wants this idea to be implanted in the reader's minds. That's what he's trying to do. So the writer uses imperative language and subheadings to create a sense of importance and order. The use of verbs like respect and check acts as a catalyst, no, as a firm reminder. Firm reminder that, or firm reminder of the reader's social duty. Social duty. And we saw, I'm gonna search for it again. I know the word, but I can't remember where it was. It was, what was it? No, it was not in the text. I think the word honesty was there. Honesty. No, it wasn't. It was there. Anyways, there you go. What else can we say? What else can we say? My brain juice is nearing its end. Okay, we can do something else. We could say, he used a tricolon, I remember. Yes, the tricolon was, the writer uses the tricolon or triplet. Tricolon, respect, courtesy, and honesty to ground. What does it do? To establish or to ground the digital experience in human ethics. Human ethics. The word ethics, we've been repeating this quite a lot. The structural approach suggests that good manners are a, what can we write? Disciplined. That's not even pronounced. Disciplined. There's a C there. Disciplined, right? Disciplined practice that requires constant, my favorite word, vigilance. Kind of being more cautious. That's what it means. Vigilant. Keep your eyes and ears open. Be more cautious with what you do and what you say. I love that word a lot. Anyways, similarly or conversely, or in the same way, in a similar way. Whereas you could say anything similarly, or whereas. Try not to use the word similarly twice. Text 2 highlights the importance of, what was it? Mutual respect. Remember that word the writer used in the text? Mutual respect. But she does it in a different way. She does it in a more philosophical lens. She uses this a different lens. Writer one sees this particular matter as a sense of urgency. He sees it in a psychological manner, whereas writer two sees it in a more physiological, physic. Um, what am I saying? Writer one sees this change, and he talks about it on a psychological note, and writer two talks about in a philosophical. They're both fees. I'm getting confused. Philosophical level or philosophical lens. That's what we can say. So, but does so through a more fully philosophical lens. Michael or she uses, we saw the word, he uses the adjective rigid to describe the outdated rules. Implying, what does it imply? Implying that old fashioned etiquette, there you go, there's a spelling, etiquette, rigid. It could mean something rough, tough. So I guess we could say can sometimes become a barrier. Be a barrier to genuine connection. That's not how you pronounce genuine. You put a U and then genuine connection. The writer said this at the end, didn't she? She said, well, it's not that they don't think they're being disrespectful. Just let them communicate it. What's important is fostering a mutual. You could talk about the word fostering here, as she describes it with the word fostering. The word fostering, you could give a little. You don't have to give it. If you want, you could give it. If you want, you could definitely give a little word analysis describing what the fostering means, since we haven't given this in our question 6 or 3. So that's something you can do if you want. I'm not going to do it. It's going to make it too big. There you go. Okay. Let's make it now connection. While text 1 provides, what does text 1 do? Yes, text 1 provides a guide. It's like that. Did he use the word map? Why didn't it come? Wait a minute. Yeah. So he says he uses it as a guide, so provides a guide. He didn't use the word map. I thought he used it. He uses the word guide. Like he uses it as a guide for behavior through its rules. Text 2, however, provides a mirror for the. This is actually beautiful. Yes, we could. Wait. This could be really well. Wait. Text 2 could provide. We could say this. Text 2 provides a mirror for the readers to reflect their behaviors. Reflect. This is a banger. Reflect on their behaviors or on attitude on their. That really goes well. That's really good. Okay. Parrot 3, this is a little bit short. You can write more about it, but you could talk about, how she talks about the foundations and all this kind of stuff. Okay. What else can we what else can we talk about? Mm, Now let's talk a little bit in detail about the tones, right? We can talk about how they do it. Um, so we can say both texts. Um, let's talk about different. Let's talk about their advantages and disadvantages. This will be our last paragraph. Both texts focus on the effects of social media, but their level of emphasis varies significantly. Text 1 focuses on the disadvantages in behavior. Or no, disadvantage, what the hell? Disadvantage in behavior focuses on the negative effects on personality, and behavior. And that's the proof. We know that for a fact. Why is this in page 1? We saw that when the writer was saying, mm, people check their phones on social media when they go on Hangouts. They're supposed to be communicating with one another. There isn't much communication going on the dinner table. Kids with iPads. To learn how engage. There you go. That's the solution. That's what they're missing out on. Behavior. He addresses the issue of parents handing their kids iPads. That's not how you pronounce you. The I is small, but the pad is capital. I don't know. Apple. But you can't spell it wrong because it's their iPad. Kids with iPads, limiting their chances. What was this? Chances of learning how to. We're gonna quote this situations. The writer also talks about how communication. Oh, this is also about communication. So the writer further shows how communication and connection seems to be fading amongst adults, like when going out with friends. He states the statistic of 76 and 56. 76% women and 56%. Does that add up to 100%? That doesn't add up to 100%. Who made the statistics? Terrible. 50% men checking their phones on Hangouts raises a huge concern, or raises a huge question mark. Huge question mark on how dependent we have become on social media and how it controls us. Similarly, or conversely, text 2 also shines light on the modern effects on people due to the social media. And both of them talked about grammar, punctuation, didn't they? Text 2 talked about it. Text 2 talked about it only. Text 1 did not. Okay. Did they talk about punctuation? Text 2 talked about punctuation. So you see, it is true that text 2 is more focused on how we communicate with one another. Text 1 is also saying that. Text 1 is talking about communication, but they see it in a negative way. Okay, we should do something. Wait. Focuses on the effects of social media on communication. Communication. Okay. Controls us. Controls us, limiting our communication or interactions. Interactions. Social media effect. Okay, I think now I don't know if you got the gist of it. Um, both are talking about communication. This is where he's saying, or whatever the hell the gender is. They're saying that in restaurants they're not communicating. That's bad. Kids are kids on the dinner table. They're not talking to their parents. Instead, they're watching stupid reels on iPads. They're not doing communication. So he's making a fuss about communication, communication. And there you go, communicate with 24/1. So he's saying both of them are talking about communication, but text 1 is only highlighting how bad everything has become. They're kind of like talking about the negative effects. Whilst text 2 is saying, well, text 2 only talks about how our texting has been hampered, how we deliver message. And text 1 is also talking about it, but he talks about the disadvantages. Wait, let me write that thing. Let's see if we can fix it. Text 1 focuses on the negative effects on personality and behavior, not quite effect on the communication skills. I think we have been repeating the word communication way too much, right? What other synonyms of communications are there? Communication, connection, contact, interaction. You could say effects on the negative effects. Text 1 focus on the negative effects. Let's just leave it as it is. Personality and behavior. He addresses the issue of parenting, parents handling their iPad, limiting their chances of learning how. Limiting their chance of learning how to communicate and converse with their families. The writer further shows how communication and connection seems to be fading away amongst adults, like when they hang out with friends. He states that staggering statistics of 7 days checking their phones and hangouts, raising a question on how dependent we have become on social media and how it controls and limiting our interactions. Conversely, text 2 also shines light on the effects of social media and how the way we deliver our messages evolved. But Michael sees this evolution as something normal and natural. She says, she said something around like something like they don't might see it as disrespectful. It might view it natural. Um, yes. So she's saying that the older generation sees this as disrespectful. That the older generation might see their means of communication as disrespectful, rather rather than rather than sounding rather than it being natural. Right? But the writer urges that kindness, consideration are still something that we it just shows that how efficient we have become. Remember, thanks, that word thanks isn't even capital. She employs how Gen Z prefer um, quick and straightforward. Quick and straightforward messages. Their their level of respect, consideration, and kindness are still intact. Their level of consideration, kindness are still intact. Intact. Rather, are expressed differently. Right? No longer we bow our heads and reach the feet of the elders and bathe ourselves with that water. Nobody does that anymore. Just a thank you is enough. That's what she's trying to say. Um, as long as, and she puts emphasis, while text one um, only sees the changes in our communication as a um, threat to um, morality and good ethics. Text two sees them them as a new way of fostering spirit, understanding, a new way of coming out of those rigid adherence, outdated rules, as new ways of interaction that doesn't limit, or new ways of that doesn't limit wait, I'm trying to get to the point. I think you know what I'm trying to do, but I'm doing a terrible job. This is what happens, every time you write good answers at the end, you just lose all energy. Goodwill and ethics. Text two sees them as new ways. Text one only sees the changes in our communication as a threat to morality and good ethics, while text two sees them sees these sees texting with emojis that was in the text as a way to free ourselves from the old rigid rules of communication. And you would end, this could have been way better, but time is scarce, and that's how you would end your text. It could have been bigger, definitely, but this is more than enough to score at least 12 marks. It could have been bigger. Like, I could have really worked on paragraph two. This looks like it's so childish. Like, look at this. All of them are so big, and this one is so small. But there you go. This was the solution of question 3, question 6, and question 7 of the most recent. That concludes section A of the most recent. I'll write this in headline. November 2025 English. You guys are English language B, right? English lang B. There you go. That sounds really redundant. Let's not do that. Yeah, just that's more than enough.